Next, we're going to be moving on to the other two cameras, the multi-lens camera in this case, and also the fisheye camera. In this case, I'm going to be talking about these cameras kind of in the same way because they overlap a lot in their functionality, or not necessarily functionality, but their purpose, what they're meant to do and what they're meant to capture. These two cameras are kind of very overlapped, okay, in that situation. So I'm going to cover the multi-lens first, the CMIP 7553 W4-SZ8, quite a handful. This is actually the second generation multi-lens camera. If any of you out there have installed the first generation one, you probably remember it being enormous. It was humongous and quite heavy. This one's size has been reduced quite significantly along with its weight. So the installation for you guys is going to be significantly easier. The benefits of this camera are that you only need to use a single cable and you get effectively, or not effectively, you get 4 views out of a single cable, okay? And those 4 views are all individually configurable between 2.8 to 8 millimeters. So it's not you set the focal length and all 4 are the same focal length. Each of the 4 lenses has their own focal length so that you may choose for some to be wide angle and some to be more narrow or lower angle lenses, more zoomed in view. Each sensor has 5 megapixels, so you get 20 megapixels across all 4 views of the multi-lens camera. And when you have the camera or have all 4 lenses set at 2.8 millimeters, you actually get 360 degrees. You actually get, you technically get more than that, but obviously since you can't truly get more than that, what happens is that you actually get overlap. And if you take a look at the image here, you can tell that there is overlap between all 4 between each camera, okay? You can't capture any blind spots, essentially. You can also, they don't have to point straight out, as you can see here. I have the camera set on the table rather than mounted on a ceiling. They don't have to point straight out from them. They can actually point upwards as well, so you can get below the camera if you were to ceiling mount it. And again, you would get also significant overlap. So you would not have to worry about there being any blind spots for your camera, assuming you're capturing within a relatively good distance of the camera itself. If you're pointing out further, so in this case, if you're pointing out further like you are doing, like I'm doing here, then you actually do miss the ceiling here, or in the case of a ceiling mounted camera, you would miss the floor directly underneath the camera itself. So those are all going to be part of your considerations when you're installing for capturing of video. Next, we'll go into the fisheye. The fisheye has been around for a very long time. Everyone may have used this before, but we have 2 fisheyes. We have 6 megapixel and a 12 megapixel fisheye. Their operations are not in any way different. So I don't have to specifically say 12 megapixels is what I'm talking about here, or 6 megapixels is what I'm talking about here, because both of them operate the same. The only thing different is the total sensor resolution. One is 12, one is 6, okay? And again, the same idea as the multi-lens camera. You get 360 coverage by a single camera. So again, it is also a single cable. You don't need 4 cables to get anything out of this. It is also still PoE powered, yada yada. So you don't have to worry about providing anything other than your, Cat5e or Cat6 from PoE, so your NVR or PoE switch. The fisheye does have a variety of viewing modes. I know that the standard view of the fisheye, which I have an image of in a bit, let's actually just move on, is not actually kind of desired, but there are other viewing modes involved with it. I do need to talk about this caveat because this is going to cause some confusion here. So there is a thing called dewarping, and dewarping is where you can change the view of the fisheye. So in this case, this circular view down here, you can mathematically edit this video and pull out other videos. And you can see here that it's been done. So there's this circular view, and out of the circular view, we've provided 3 Epdz views out of it. And this is through a function called dewarping, okay? And local dewarping or app dewarping does require that the NVR supports fisheyes, okay? So if any of you have a catalog, I don't have the picture here, but if any of you have the catalog, you'll notice that in the NVR section, there is a row that says support fisheye number. If there is no number there listed for your NVR, which is the case for the K and Q, it's only available for 89 and 86, as I say here on this page, then it will not be able to do the dewarping locally. That does not mean that you can't add the fisheye to your NVR. You can have a K and Q and you can add a fisheye onto it. It just means you can't do this specific function, which is to do the dewarp and have all of the dewarped channels or views inside of a single channel. You can see here that I have this 2x2 view. So there's only supposed to be 4 cameras or 4 camera views. But in this bottom left view, I have 4 views inside of it. And this is provided by the local dewarp function. If you don't have that, then you will have to only have a single view. So generally speaking, the single fisheye view. And then if you want the other views, you'll have to add them in as separate channels. Okay, so it will no longer be a single channel. It will actually be, more than 1, 2, 3, or 4 channels. And also here on the left, you can see that in the app, we can also do the same kind of dewarping if I provide it with just the fisheye view. But again, this requires that the NVR support it. If the NVR does not support it, then you don't get this functionality at all. And you'll again have to add in the separate views so that you can actually view them in the non-warped view. This question does come up quite often, so it's something I should nip in the bud ahead of time. And the next, I'm going to talk about remote warping or remote dewarping or dewarping through software. This can be done by the computer, and generally speaking, when I'm referring to that, I'm referring to VS Player. So you can actually record just the fisheye view. So in this case, just the fisheye view in the middle. And through VS Player, you can pull in the video, and you can actually dewarp it and pull any view that you want without having to record those views. In my opinion, this is a better situation because if you set up the manual channels so that you already have the 4 views, you can't edit those views afterwards. So if the views miss something from your fisheye, then you're kind of out of luck there. However, if you pull in the whole fisheye view and you recorded it, generally speaking, the fisheye view is not actually going to miss anything. And you can pull the recording in here, and then you can actually click and drag. And I will actually demo this functionality after I'm finished with this PowerPoint. I'll demo this functionality so that you can see at any point I can actually just straight up move one of these views and look at it while it's playing. So I can choose my view at any point. Whereas if you have recorded the views, then you get what you get. So let's go over the different viewing modes that are available. So this here is the standard fisheye view. This is the one that people are probably most accustomed to when they hear the word fisheye. They imagine this circular view as so. It gets 360 degrees, but a lot of people will say it doesn't look that great. It looks too warped. I can't really tell about any information here. These are pretty common complaints, I'll call them. Common complaints about the fisheye view, that it doesn't look nice or anything like that. In my opinion, though, it's not really about this view, since you can do this functionality here, where you'll be able to dewarp in post and get the views that you want. So this is actually functionally the better choice to have on your NVR. However, if you encounter that your customer is not going to budge on that, then there are other options that you get. And that's, you can get a panoramic view. So this is a situation where if you install the camera on a wall and you want 180 degrees, then you can actually get a panoramic view from the camera without having to get a circular view. And this might be my only other recommendation if you were to be using the fisheye, in that you're installing it on a wall, then this might actually be better than your standard fisheye view. Next, we have Epdz views. These simulate normal cameras. So this is similar to the situation with the multi-lens camera, where you get 4 different channels. And in this situation, if you use the Epdz view, you must use up 4 channels on your NVR. Whereas if you use either the wall panoramic or the standard fisheye, these only use up a single channel. So do consider that when you're purchasing the fisheye, because if you have an NVR, for example, and you have, let's say, a 16 channel NVR, and you have 14 cameras already, and you're thinking about adding a fisheye, if you want to add that fisheye, you do technically have 2 channels, and you could if you're adding it in wall panoramic or standard fisheye view. But if you want it in Epdz views, then you're only able to add 2 more out of the remaining 4. So you need to consider how many channels you're going to have available for your fisheye if you're going to be using the Epdz views, okay? And lastly, for the application of the fisheye and the multi-lens, these are generally recommended to be used in open areas. If you have a lot of areas where there's occlusion or blocking of the view from the camera, then the camera itself is, I'm going to say, not meant for those purposes. These are meant for having a single camera cover a significant amount of area, so that means it does have to be open. If there is a lot of occlusion, if there is a lot of blocking and stuff like that, then you're better off looking for a different solution, which is probably going to be multiple cameras in different locations. However, in an open area, a single camera will cover multiple cameras instead. They are also used in situations where you do want to reduce your wiring requirements. So if you're installing in these open areas and you wanted to cover a significant amount of space, your situation could be install this camera, or one of those 2 cameras, the fisheye and the multi-lens, and run a single wire or a single cable to be precise. Or you could install multiple cameras in multiple different locations and run multiple different cables to those locations. Running cable is probably, I don't know, I'm not an installer, so but I'd imagine running cables is probably significantly longer than installing the actual camera itself. So you will actually lower the amount of work you're doing just by installing a single camera instead of multiple cameras. Lastly, we'll do a little bit of a comparison between the fisheye and the multi-lens camera, because they are not exactly one-to-one. They are close, but they are not exactly one-to-one. There's significant overlap. It is possible to get 360-degree coverage from both cameras. Both cameras also, again, only require single network cable. This is true for the multi-lens, okay? The multi-lens is also powered by PoE plus, not PoE, PoE plus, but it's still only a single network cable. You don't have to provide 12 volt or 24 volt AC. Just the network cable with PoE is enough. Where it differs is in the number of channels. The fisheye can use a single channel when you're using the fisheye view or the panoramic views, and can go up to 4 channels if you use the Epdz views. However, the multi-lens camera must use 4 channels. It is 4 separate lenses, 4 separate sensors. So you do require 4 different channels for it, okay? However, the benefit of the multi-lens is that since each channel is 5 megapixels, you get 20 megapixels total of resolution, whereas the fisheye, you actually only get 12 megapixels of resolution overall. And the Epdzs are actually less, roughly 2 megapixels to 3 megapixels, depending on the specific mode that you are in, okay? And so that is actually it. We're not actually going to do Q&A yet. I am going to showcase off the fisheye expansion. So here I do have video. You can see this is actually a 6-minute long video of the fisheye view that I have set up in our meeting room. It's not demo room, meeting room. I am right here, over here on the right, you can see, and I can expand the view. I can pause it, and then here I can actually choose the mounting type that it's set on. So normally it would be ceiling mount, or by default it would be in ceiling mount. I can choose to do wall mounted if I wanted, but in this case, this camera is actually not wall mounted or ceiling mounted. This is actually a table or floor mounted. And so I'm going to choose the floor mounting or table mounting option. I can now choose my view, and you can see here that I can play the video. And while the video is playing, I can actually change my view. So if I had set a multi view on my NVR like so, and I had recorded it ahead of time, my 4 channels like this, and I was over here on the right, I would not actually be able to really view myself in the video because there's no way for me to actually change it since I don't actually have the full fisheye view. Or you could, but your fisheye view does actually have lowered resolution if you were to use this option here. So having this option makes it a lot better. Again, this is all my opinion. You don't actually have to take my opinion. But in my opinion, it is better because I have more flexibility in choosing what I get to see afterwards. I can always just move around and then play the video again from a different view and get exactly the look that I want.